Cardano investors and holders of ADA are going to be incredibly wealthy in 2024, at least in my opinion. It's a great ecosystem that I've been a huge advocate for since 2020, and well, progress may have been slow for some of the more impatient retail investors. For those who have been around for a while, it's great to be able to say and see some great accumulative action in terms of the ecosystem, the developments that have happened over on Cardano, and it doesn't really look like it's likely to slow down anytime soon. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and opinions as to why I think 2024 is going to be a great year for Cardano investors and why I think you're going to become incredibly wealthy. Let's roll that intro and get right down into it. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another walk and talk video where I am out in the woods just getting away from the desk, just trying to get some exercise and some fresh air and to kind of just keep things really real with you guys, talk to you in a raw, uncut kind of way as to kind of what I think is going on with Cardano. Now, obviously over the last few years and months and maybe even weeks, we have kind of come up with some almost kind of wacky kind of price predictions, if you will, for Cardano. And there's definitely some exaggeration in places, I kind of own up to a little bit of that, as I think everyone in the kind of YouTube space kind of has to exaggerate things a little bit to kind of get eyeballs on the main message, which is kind of trying to come across, right? So, we talk about large price predictions, which I do think, will eventually happen, but they aren't going to happen overnight. They're not going to be kind of you wake up one day and you're a multi-millionaire kind of situation on the back of $1,000 investment. We are talking more long-term ultimately, right? And I think there's going to be some great potential for Cardano in that kind of multi-year kind of thought process. So I'm going to share with you guys my thoughts and opinions as to kind of what I think is going on and where I think things are heading when it comes to Cardano's ADA. So Cardano's ADA, right, it is one of those coins, those cryptocurrencies that gets a lot of hate, I would say, right? It's definitely one that's you either love it or you hate it. You either believe in the future of the Cardano ecosystem or you kind of are kind of believing, kind of the FUD and the kind of the noise out there that's not really factual. And again, you can do your own research on this and actually dig deeper above and beyond what a few influencers may tell you about Cardano, right? Because it's not a ghost chain. It does have a lot of things being built on it. It's just a slow process. Now we have to understand that the language barrier on Cardano has been a bit of a hindrance. It's one of those where it's easy to find a developer who can kind of code on Solidity, right? It's been around for a very long time. But one of the problems that you have with Solidity is it's much easier to write insecure code. Hence you find all of these hacks and all these problems on some of these piss poor ecosystems that haven't really patched up some of those vulnerabilities. Now, with Cardano's ecosystem, the Haskell language is a barrier. It's not necessarily something that is easy to understand. It takes a little bit of a learning curve, and a lot of developers are just, in my opinion, simply lazy and don't want to learn how to code on the Cardano ecosystem. However, there are a handful of developers that have taken it on board and have started to learn to develop on the Cardano ecosystem. And this actually is a contribution to the slow development process that we see on the Cardano ecosystem. That language barrier at the moment, which I do think is just going to be the early stages of the Cardano ecosystem. Long term, I think it's going to be fine. But for now, there's a problem where there's few developers and they're highly sought after. That means that the Cardano ecosystem is actually relatively expensive to develop on because you need to pay a premium in order to get hold of the very finite, small amount of Haskell developers that are out there. So kind of is a problem to a point where progress can be slow, but it is better in the sense of you can write more secure code, or it's easier to write secure code than insecure code on Haskell versus Solidity, for example. So pros and cons as with everything. Now, ultimately, I'm a big believer in saying that, yeah, I think it's better to have an ecosystem that it has the right kind of ethos behind it when it comes to coding. So we don't want to just have an ecosystem that uses something like Solidity, where a really bad developer can go ahead and write a really bad piece of code that has vulnerabilities in it, and then it costs retail investors billions of dollars in damages, right? For example, I think it's better to be on the other side of that coin and actually have an ecosystem that might be slower to develop on, but is a lot more secure. And that's kind of where Cardano sits. So we are, of course, talking more longer term. We are not talking about, the price action of Cardano, rallying up overnight and you're an instantaneous millionaire, right? As I said earlier. Instead, what we're talking about here is having faith in a multi-year long approach that is a belief in the Cardano ecosystem integrating into some real world use cases. And we've seen a lot of development around governments potentially onboarding into the Cardano ecosystem. I think we're going to see a lot more of this as Cardano is a blockchain that is built for the future. Now, obviously, we have to bear in mind there's going to be developments in the real world and new generations of blockchains that will come and ultimately take Cardano, maybe have to take a bit of a back step at times, but it is built in a way that we can see upgradability in it as well. So I have kind of faith in the longer term picture of the use case of Cardano. And of course, all of this ties into the price action of ADA, right? Which is all those big price predictions that, many influencers across the space talk about, ourselves included. And I've been on the record for saying $26 ADA, and a lot of people jump down into the comments section and kind of say, well, do you know what the market cap would be? Well, yeah, of course I do. It's quite a simple calculation. In fact, it's just supply, circulating supply multiplied by price, right? You have to understand that the market cap is controlled by price. The market cap does not control price, okay? Price moves only on supply and demand. So as we can see with the ecosystem for Cardano, we can see that there's a lot of development happening. A lot of the development that is there is around the DeFi sector, for example. Now, what that's going to bring is essentially going to bring a huge amount of demand coming in while simultaneously shrinking the supply. Because we can see that the on-chain data shows, a continued growth in total value locked for Cardano, right? Not necessarily at the dollar value, but at the ADA level. And it's a really important metric because it shows us that more and more ADA is being locked up over time. And that's a positive because it shrinks the supply that is available for purchase on the exchanges, which will mean that when we have the demand coming in and the supply that's already shrinking, price is going to react positively to the upside. What we don't want to do is we don't want to fall into the trap of thinking that the market cap is going to be a barrier to price discovery, because it isn't. The market cap in itself is a really piss poor attempt at trying to show you value without actually showing you value. Ultimately, it's just a very basic calculation, as I said. The circulating supply multiplied by the price. It doesn't therefore show you liquidity, doesn't show you value, and it doesn't show you anything of use, really. I mean, you can rank everything by it, fill your boots. There's lots of different ways you can calculate market cap as well. You've got the basic calculation as I just explained, and then you've got more complicated calculations as well at the point of last purchase or last moved on chain. And you can actually go into realized market cap versus unrealized market cap and a whole host of various other metrics. My point here though, guys, is that we don't want to kind of trip ourselves up thinking it's impossible for Cardano to rally up that high. Do you know what the market cap would be? Or just it's impossible. When the reality of the situation is that market cap is absolute bullshit and it's not a metric that you want to focus in on. What you want to focus in on is what's going to shrink the supply of ADA and what is going to increase the demand of ADA. Those are the two things that will control price, and then price will control market cap. We talk about this all the time, specifically on things like Cardano, because it comes up a lot. XRP is another one that a lot of people don't understand, and of course Bitcoin as well. Okay, and of course, if you go way back to 2011, 2012, we had the same debates going on with Bitcoin's market cap. You can't possibly go to $1 trillion market cap for Bitcoin. Yet what do you see, right? Here we are just a few short years later. My point is that the price predictions for ADA are long term. And I do think Cardano ADA has the ability to see very significant price increases over the years. And I'm going to say that it's probably unlikely to see $26 ADA in the next bullish market for Cardano, but I do think we could land somewhere between $6 and $12 in this next bullish cycle for Cardano's ADA. Now, next cycle after this one coming, yeah, we could be talking $26 pretty comfortably. And of course, unless something really fantastic happens, which is also a possibility, we could see a huge increase in demand for Cardano in this next bullish cycle that does, take it up towards that $26 level. And if it does, absolutely fantastic. I would love that. But I don't think it's realistic just yet. But it's one of those things that we can't take off the table, can't rule it out until, of course, we see what happens at the beginning of the next real bullish movements for Cardano's ADA to the upside. Now, we obviously have seen some volatility recently. It kind of gets a lot of confidence kind of going for Cardano, and we can see there is going to be a requirement for a retracement, as with everything. Nothing goes up in straight lines forever. And I do think we are likely to see some pretty decent accumulative areas in the coming weeks and months for ADA. So if you haven't yet kind of got yourself a position, I do think you can kind of look at better pricing in the near future, in my opinion. But of course, I am no financial advisor. I can't give anyone financial advice. I don't know your financial situations. I don't know any of that information. All I can do is tell you my thoughts and opinions and share my thoughts on the data in the charts as I personally see it. And I think Cardano is one of those that's been around for a while now. It's got some credibility. It's in the top 10, and I do think it's going to be a good contender for very significant growth in that next bullish market without such significant risk. I think there's going to be everything in cryptocurrency is of course high risk. There's going to be the incredibly high risk, and then there's going to be the slightly safer place. And I put Cardano in a slightly safer play. It will have less percentage gains than the sort of higher risk plays, but I do think it's going to perform very well, and I think it's going to see some real significant growth in 2024. So you can let me know in the comments below, are you invested in ADA? Are you avoiding it? You can let me know in the comments below. And why not check out this video here where I'm discussing XRP and all the fantastic things that I think are to come for the XRP price action.